Boruto vs Kawaki is a topic that will never not be relevant to have in a Boruto discourse. And this is exactly the conversation that we'll be having today. As in today's video, we'll be breaking down Boruto vs Kawaki, but in every single arc of the story so far. This means from the moment Kawaki was introduced to the latest arc that we have finished, being the one that we had in the Land of Wind. Obviously, this will not include any of Momoshiki feats personally when Momoshiki is controlling Boruto's body, but just Boruto fighting and Kawaki fighting himself. So before we start this video, like and hype up this video, and if there are any other versus battles in the Boruto and Naruto series, or maybe even outside of it that you want to see, let me know in the comment section below. So we're going to be starting off with the arc where Boruto and Kawaki first met, the Ale/the Kawaki arc. This is the first point that we will be analyzing their strength in comparison to one another. And even at this early stage, the difference between Boruto and Kawaki is something that is not drastic, as they are at a pretty similar level. We see a Boruto in this arc that plays the biggest role in Ale being taken down. The reason why I say this is because Boruto is not the person who single-handedly defeats Ale from the beginning to the end of this fight like a lot of people would have you believe, as in fact, Ale is stronger than Boruto in the beginning of this fight. Ale was sent by Kara to take care of two jonin, one who was Konohamaru. He ends up heavily injuring Konohamaru and kills the other jonin. The strategy to defeat Ale after Konohamaru was heavily injured, and we had another jonin that ended up sacrificing his life to allow them to escape, was for Ale to be heavily weakened, which would lead to the battle being less difficult for them to take on. This was achieved by Boruto manipulating and tricking Ale into grabbing the chakra lightsaber, which ended up draining much of his chakra. Ale ends up losing so much chakra that Boruto himself tells Ale that he looks drained and has slowed down quite a bit. This is not to downplay Boruto at all, but at this point in the story, it showcases just how strong Ale is and the context that is necessary to analyze this fight. Because it is only after that point that we start to see Ale really start to lose and Boruto take the upper hand, as Boruto ends up breaking his ninjutsu tool arm and ultimately ends up defeating Ale. This fight is very important because Ale is a Kawaki Outer that Team 7 fought, and what we do end up seeing next is that Kawaki fights another Kawaki Outer in Garo. I'm definitely not going to argue that Garo is necessarily on the same level or stronger than Ale because we don't really know who is stronger, but the feats that we see Kawaki showcase in this fight is far more impressive than the ones that we see from Boruto. In base, Mitsuki notes that Kawaki is fast, and although Kawaki struggles in the beginning of this fight, when Kawaki ends up activating his karma, which he did not really want to use, he makes lightweight of Garo, humiliating him, leaving him with only the bottom half of his body, something that JJK fans must hate to see. But this is what really determines the battle between Boruto and Kawaki at this stage in the story, the karma. And Kawaki having more experience with it makes him my clear winner at this stage. Because we have seen Boruto and Kawaki fight in base multiple times in this arc. And when they fought in base, they were quite relative. For example, when they were fighting over who was going to use the bathroom when they were in Naruto's home, before they even got to use the karma, Boruto and Kawaki were relative to one another, with Naruto who ended up interrupting that fight. And when they fought when Naruto was supervising them in the training grounds, Boruto and Kawaki were relative to another when they were fighting in base. However, the gap really starts to show when karma is being used, as there is a clear gap in experience between Kawaki and Boruto, where Kawaki is far more experienced, and this is what truly determines the fight. Because Boruto can't really absorb ninjutsu consciously like Kawaki can, and he can't even use his karma without it resonating with Kawaki first. He can't activate it. There are clear differences in their experience when it comes to utilizing the karma, where Boruto has to be pushed to certain levels for him to be able to use it, where Kawaki on the other hand is far more experienced, so he benefits more from these karma boosts. So the difference between Boruto and Kawaki is not drastic at that point, but Kawaki, due to him having more experience with the karma, has the edge. So for the Kawaki arc, I would say it is 1 point for Kawaki as the one who is the winner. The next point of their battle that we're going to be talking about is the Code arc. And we'll be breaking down the Code arc into 2 sections, because there is a big disparity in the power progression from the beginning of the arc to the end of the arc. So we'll be splitting them into 2, the beginning of the Code arc and the end of the Code arc. So at the beginning of the Code arc, Kawaki has lost his karma, while Boruto has grown a little bit more experience with the karma, as he is now able to turn it on at will, and he's also able to absorb ninjutsu at will. Although Boruto and Kawaki in base are still relative at this point in the series, as shown when they end up battling to determine how exactly they're going to train in preparation to fight versus Code. So the deciding factor at this stage in the arc 2 is also going to be the karma. Kawaki losing the karma put a big strain on his fighting style and also his mentality. He subconsciously tries to use the karma while he is fighting against Boruto, and he ends up losing to Boruto not just due to that subconscious fact, but due to the fact that Boruto gets an exponential boost in power due to the fact that he has the karma, and Kawaki doesn't get that boost, and he is reliant on his karma as it has been his deciding factor for the majority of the fights that he fought. So with that being the case and Boruto already winning, which forced Kawaki and the rest of Team 10 to train in the ninja way, I would say that in the beginning of the Code arc, Boruto is the clear winner. It is not even a competition, and at this point it is less close because Kawaki simply doesn't have the karma. So as of this moment, it is 1-1 for Boruto and Kawaki. Now, with the massive boost in power that occurs over this arc, Boruto versus Kawaki becomes even more interesting, as this time Boruto and Kawaki are both a lot more experienced with the karma and both have it to be used. As Kawaki regains his karma through the help of Amato, and due to the unintentional help from Code, they are both able to tap into True Essence karma. So starting off with Boruto, we see that Boruto with True Essence karma is able to go toe-to-toe with Limiter Code. At points, Boruto pushes Code so close to death, where Ada herself gets worried for Code's safety, and Code himself says that he got lucky. At times, Code also tried to leave the fight, but Kawaki, after seeing Boruto unlock this new stage of the karma, he decided to stay and fight, because he believed that Boruto could beat Code. So Boruto at this point in the series would be bare minimum relative to Code with his limiters, if not stronger than this Code with his limiters. Because we have to remember the fact that Boruto at this stage wasn't even going all out. Boruto says that he's about to go all out, and then we see Boruto who ends up getting his heart attack and Momoshiki takes over. So this is just a short skirmish that we got to see of Boruto and Code, where Boruto was still testing out his True Essence karma state. But still in that moment, he got close and was dominating Code with his new power. Although we see Boruto get this massive boost in power, being able to fight toe-to-toe and be superior to a Code with his limiters, we see that the power that Kawaki ends up getting when he regains his karma and also goes into his True Essence state, ultimately Kawaki's stage is just far stronger. Because when Kawaki utilizes True Essence karma for the first time, it can easily be argued that he is stronger than Boruto. Kawaki at this stage showcases feats that put him even above the likes of Jigen. He is able to utilize the Kokugan with far more triangles than Jigen has ever been shown to use. And even if you argue from a point of skepticism, where you are really skeptic on this point of Kawaki just being better than Jigen, you can see that Kawaki is just 1, a perfect vessel of Ishiki, 2, we see that Kawaki is compared to the likes of Ishiki when he showcases this power, where Code says that Amato is trying to create a second version of Ishiki. This is not to say that Kawaki is stronger than Ishiki, but it is to show that the comparison is no longer from Kawaki to Jigen, but from Kawaki to Ishiki at this stage. And the third point is that Kawaki is able to use the Daikokoden at a better rate than Jigen has ever been shown to be able to use, as Jigen can only bring out the small rods that we see him use in the fight versus Naruto and Sasuke, while Kawaki on the other hand is able to do the same but also bring out the various different pillars from Ishiki's dimension, which just showcases a better utilization and overall power that Kawaki is able to draw than Jigen. You could say that potentially Ishiki is a better and more experienced fighter, but with the fact that Kawaki is tapping to True Essence Karma, which taps into that same experience that Ishiki is able to tap into when controlling Jigen's body, the only differences would be in their battle IQ. So maybe you say that Ishiki's battle IQ when he is controlling Jigen's body is better than Kawaki's. However, Kawaki is able to tap into more of Ishiki's power than Jigen could ever do, which grants more credence to the take that Kawaki is stronger than Jigen. So this Kawaki ends up facing Momoshiki in control of Boruto's body. This Momoshiki is far stronger than True Essence Karma, as Code notices the big disparity in destructive capability that Momoshiki has when controlling Boruto than Boruto himself. Because when Boruto ends up using True Essence Karma, his power is like Momoshiki's. However, when Momoshiki utilizes Boruto's body and taps into True Essence Karma, most likely due to the fact that Momoshiki can better utilize the Karma, we still see a disparity in their power usage, when Momoshiki is able to spam massive Rasengans that Boruto is only able to do later on in the series. So Kawaki ends up fighting a much stronger version than Boruto at this stage in the series and goes toe-to-toe with Momoshiki. You could even argue that at times Kawaki was superior than Momoshiki when they were fighting, as Momoshiki later on doesn't even want to fight Kawaki. So this just proves beyond any reasonable doubt that the clear winner, if Boruto and Kawaki are to fight at this stage in the series, the simple winner would be Kawaki, where Kawaki fights stronger opponents, has better hacks in my opinion, where Boruto hasn't fully shown us anything that we could say would prove him to be stronger than Kawaki, while Kawaki has too many better feats than Boruto at this stage. So it is 2-1 for Kawaki. Now, I don't know if any anime onlys are watching to this stage of the video. If you're an anime only, come back when the Boruto anime is launched and you end up seeing this glorious, one of the greatest arcs I've ever seen in my life, because I don't want to spoil you at all. You can't get spoiled for one of the greatest arcs of all time. But the next arc that we'll be discussing is the Prophecy arc, where Boruto and Kawaki fight, but Sarada ends up interrupting them. So what would have truly happened if this fight wasn't interrupted? What would happen if Boruto and Kawaki got to fight alone? Because Sarada wasn't the only one who interrupted them, the rest of the Leaf did. So this fight is very interesting because Kawaki and Boruto, I wouldn't say they are as strong as they were in the previous fights. This is mainly due to the fact that they are not able to tap in to the same version of True Essence Karma. We see that their karma pattern is different, and it is not the same karma pattern as the regular karma that they end up utilizing. It is a little bit more advanced. However, it is not True Essence Karma. We don't see the same karma pattern for Boruto that is similar to that when Momoshiki takes control, and Kawaki doesn't have his horns. And this makes quite a bit of sense. Their emotions were a lot more heightened in the fight versus Code due to all the events that took place. And to me, it may have been a fluke or a miraculous moment for both of them to be able to tap in to True Essence Karma at that stage, because we don't see them do it at all again, meaning that they haven't really mastered True Essence Karma at that point. But nevertheless, the winner of this fight would still be Kawaki. Although Boruto has better usage of the karma without necessarily having to go into True Essence Karma, because we do see that he's able to use Odama Rasengan. But this doesn't change the fact that Kawaki is still the strongest. He is named the strongest in the village at this point in the series, and Kashin Koji reinforces this idea by the fact that we have a scene of him directly telling Boruto that Kawaki would have killed both him and Boruto in a future scene. And that is the scene that Kashin Koji had seen, a likely scenario. This future that Kashin Koji saw changed, but it wasn't because Boruto became strong enough to defeat Kawaki. So before the time skip, Kawaki goes in with a 3-1 lead on Boruto. The real question is, do we see any major changes when the time skip begins? Now, the time skip really does change everything for this fight, to the point where it becomes embarrassing until we realize the truth. So Boruto at the beginning of the arc takes care of Code quite easily, where it becomes almost comical. This is a Code that is greatly stronger than Jigen, and Boruto tells us that killing Code would be easy. This Code is incredibly strong and underrated. Not only did Mitsuki tell us that Boruto being able to beat Code means that Kawaki is not on his level, but Code in one of the future timelines ends up beating Kawaki and feeding him to the Divine Tree. We do know that Kawaki got his powers reconfigured for defense only, likely after the Code arc or sometime during the time skip, but it still doesn't negate the fact that this is the Kawaki that we know at this period of the arc. And what do we end up seeing happen, even when Boruto and Kawaki end up fighting? Although this happens in base, Boruto ends up one-tapping Kawaki quite easily. He even questions if Kawaki trained during the time skip. Even Delta's reaction to all of this taking place is scary, because she herself is astonished at the fact that Boruto has become this strong, showcasing the difference in power between Boruto and Kawaki at this stage in the arc. Even though Amado ended up reconfiguring Kawaki towards defense, the gap in power between Boruto and Kawaki is so large that Boruto would still be able to defeat Kawaki even if his defenses are much higher, because his attacking prowess is lower and thus he wouldn't be able to harm Boruto, and thus Boruto has a lot more leverage to be able to not only be faster than Kawaki, as we literally saw Kawaki and Delta flying and Boruto being a lot faster than Kawaki in that realm, but also in terms of strength. So Kawaki is slower than Boruto, wouldn't be able to hit Boruto, and Boruto is stronger. Although it might take a little bit more hits, Boruto would still be able to basically one-tap Kawaki as shown in base, and the karma wouldn't change anything. So the score would now be 3-2. Now going into the Land of Wind, where we end up seeing the Senju, we do see that in this arc that Kawaki's attack gets reconfigured. Where before it was mostly about defense, but now it wasn't brought to a balance. No, it was brought to the opposite, where his attack is at the forefront. Boruto, at this stage, we see in this arc that he's able to fight and damage Jiro, where he ends up taking out one of his legs. But ultimately at the end of the day, Boruto is not strong enough to even push a Jiro that is clearly not trying. Jiro nullifies Boruto's strongest ability with the Uzuhiko and is smacked by Jiro. While on the other hand, Kawaki, with his new configuration, is the only character that we have really seen push Jiro and really damage him to a point where maybe he could have died. We even see that Jiro resorts to using the Divine Chi roots, which he has never used before, and he didn't have to use on Boruto, as he pummeled Boruto quite easily. Jiro is not trying still. Obviously this is the case. This is not Jiro's full power. But he still remarks that Kawaki got exponentially stronger and is on a different level than before. Kawaki still believes that he needs more power to be actually able to defeat Jiro, which tells us that Jiro is clearly not going all out. However, Kawaki still remains the person who has still pushed Jiro the most. So what would happen if this version of Boruto and Kawaki fought? It is safe to say that Boruto at this point in the story is not able to use the karma, as due to the fact that Momoshiki and Boruto did not make a deal, and whenever Boruto would use the karma, he felt like he was dying. Boruto would not have access to the karma in this arc, while Kawaki can. Kawaki can use the karma, and as we have said multiple times, he pushed Jiro the furthest to any other character in the series. Kawaki can also nullify Boruto's Uzuhiko using the karma. So it is not like Boruto would out-hack Kawaki. At this stage in the series, Kawaki just has so many hacks that he would out-hack Boruto. The shrinking ability that Kawaki has is honestly broken, and with the karma, with Boruto who is using planetary chakra, although it is planetary, it is still chakra at the end of the day, so it can be absorbed using the karma. So due to the fact that Boruto's strongest ability wouldn't work, and Kawaki is stronger than Boruto at this stage in the series. We see multiple times that he even is able to dodge Jira's moves, where Jira didn't really land a solid blow on Kawaki this entire fight. So it is quite likely that Boruto wouldn't be able to land a hit on Kawaki either, because Kawaki is that much faster. The simple answer is that Kawaki is stronger, faster, and out-hacks Boruto at this stage in the series because of the karma and the boost in power that he received. So Boruto not having access to the karma at this stage in the series, it makes the final verdict that of Kawaki winning. This makes the final verdict 4-2 in favor of Kawaki. The question is, do you think Boruto will be able to close the gap at the end of the series? Let me know in the comment section below. But the conversation that we also have to have is that of Boruto versus Ten Tails Madara. And the outcome of this fight is something that Naruto fans have to accept in 2026. Watch this video to find out.